So to everybody, David Allen has genuinely shaped how I think about my own work. He's a creator of getting things done. And David, really excited that you're with us today.
Joel, thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here. Happy to share what I know, which may not be much, but it is what it is.
No, it is decades and decades of experience and learnings, books, and I'm just excited to see how something that has been here, has been shaping lives for so many years, still stands today, and how you've seen it morph and change. So a lot to discuss. But for everybody in the audience, drop a heart if you are familiar with the getting things done framework, or if you've used it in the past in your company or organization. Just drop a heart in the chat if it's something that you've seen in the past. Awesome. We're getting a lot of people are familiar with it. So before we go anywhere, what is one paragraph version of what getting things done is? So obviously, capture, clarify, organize, reflect, engage. But for somebody who's never read the book, how would you describe it?
Well, I didn't make this up. I just recognize the set of behaviors that we do when we take any situation that's sort of out of control and get it under control and focused.
Uh,
And I just objectified what those behaviors were and made it possible that you could recreate those if you're not doing them already. I came at this not as a big strategic plan at all. Could have fooled me. This was going to be the world and my career. I was going to be a history major. I was a his.
Really?
I was studying American
Wow.
intellectual history in Berkeley in 1968 in graduate school. And but I decided to hop out and go for my own enlightenment instead of just studying other people who had theirs. This is California in the '60s. Come on, so
Yeah.
that was de rigueur, back then. And so I discovered through various different explorations, they discovered the strategic value of having a clear head, especially in the martial arts. I got a black belt in karate, and a lot of that training was about how to
Oh
clear
wow.
your head, right? So that you can fight extemporaneously and maintain control and be flexible and all that good stuff. Uh, I stole the phrase from Bruce Lee's sensei, mind like water. How do you
I was
how do
I
you
was
get
about to bring that up. Yeah.
how do you get a clear head? Water doesn't overreact or underreact. It just reacts appropriately to its environment. So the whole
Yeah.
idea was, how do you react appropriately to your environment without overreacting or underreacting? And so I just took that model and said, okay, how do I do that? And they weren't paying people to do that. So I had to make a living. So I wound up having friends who had their own businesses, and I just said, well, let me see if any of them need any help. And so I wound up finding some friends and some associates and people that, entrepreneurs, small business people.
Uh-huh.
And I walked in, I said, well, how much easier can we make what you're doing how much earlier can we leave today?
Yeah.
Because I'm Mr. Lazy or Mr. Efficient, however you want to think about that. And so I'd help them improve their system about what they were doing and then get bored and go leave and go find another gig. Then I discovered they pay people to do that. They call them something, consultant. Oh my God, who knew? So I said, okay, well, maybe I could make a little bit of a consulting practice, just selling myself project by project to kind of help people doing what they were doing. Because I like that. That was fun. And it was interesting to find different people with different jobs and different industries,
Uh-huh.
different professions, and just seeing what they were all doing. So that became sort of the keynote of what I was doing. And my life got more complex and busy. So I was sort of screwing up my own clear mental space. I said, wait a minute, how do I stay clear myself given all this? And so I began to then incorporate little technique by little technique by little technique. I didn't
Uh,
wake up one morning with this whole methodology aware. Uh, but then as I was discovering stuff that worked for me, I started sharing those with my consulting clients. And it turned out if they implemented any of that, they produced the same results it did for me. More clarity, more control, more focus, more space in your head to think about cool stuff. And so that became a lot of the sort of the keynote of my
yeah.
consulting practice, and then some head guy in the human resource world in a big corporation saw what I was doing. He said, "Well, David, we need that result in our whole culture. Can you design some sort
That's
of
amazing.
training program around what you've come up with?" I said, "Well, I'll see." Designed a 2-day personal productivity program. We did a pilot program for 1,000 executives and managers at Lockheed in 1983 and 84. And it
Oh,
was probably the most successful training they'd done. And you could have fooled me. I was suddenly thrust into the corporate training world. If you'd have told me as an American intellectual history major in Berkeley in 68 that I was going to be in the corporate training world, I go, who are you kidding? What are you smoking? Oh my God, who'd have thought? But it turned out they were the ripest audience for what I'd come up with. There was, in the corporate world in the 80s anyway, they were starting to get hit with the tsunami of email and corporate change and
yeah,
flattened organizations and more need for more accountability further down the ranks. And so that kind of change was creating a good bit of stress and interest in mostly the higher level professionals who were getting promoted, moving into new
yeah,
jobs, having to deal with the change that was going on in the corporations. So that became a lot of my business, was just doing a lot of training, and my
that's amazing.
consulting turned into one-on-one coaching a lot with more senior people that ran across me and my stuff and said, "David, can you come sit next to me in my office, close my
Mm,
door, and let's see if we can help me implement what you've come up with." And so I literally spent thousands of hours, Joel, from you know, one-on-one with some of the best and brightest folks you'd ever meet on the planet, walking them through this model and refining it and testing it out and ensuring that it really worked. And it did.
that's
Took me
amazing.
it took me 15 years to figure out what I'd figured out, and then nobody else seemed to have done it. See, I never had any traditional or formal education in business psychology or time management. This was all just street smarts, just experience knowledge,
Yeah.
about what really worked, and that was universal. That didn't change no matter who I worked with or what they were doing. If they implemented these techniques, no matter what they were doing, it improved their condition without fail.
Did it start out as the 5 steps, or was that a gradual movement towards
It was a gradual thing. I had a
yeah.
mentor who taught me about capture and clarify next actions,
Mm,
which are still very key to the process. So,
yeah.
he was a great mentor of mine, and he was very much into corporate change and facilitating. He's been a long time consultant, very mature in dealing with corporate change. And he found that those were key elements to help sort of clear the deck for the CEOs and senior people he was working with so they could actually have some room to focus on the change they wanted to make happen. And
Mhm.
so, so there were a few things like that, and, 2 or 3 other mentors and other things that I just came up with. But I didn't have it all together really. As I started to develop the seminar, of course, that forced me to frame, what are the basic principles and what are the basic things that I could teach people and have them walk away with stuff they could use right away. And that's really where, I just uncovered or just recognized the 5 stages of capturing stuff that has your attention, clarifying what it means, and organizing the results that you couldn't finish in the moment in some sort of external trusted brain, that you could then review and reflect on in some conscious way on a regular basis so that you could feel more comfortable about what you're doing and what you're not doing. So
Mhm.
it was kind of a big duh. This was
Yeah.
not like some new technology or some foreign language you had to learn. We should have those principles, but boy, very few people on the planet, even now, have implemented those 5 things really to get a really
Yeah.
clear head and maintain a really clear head on a regular basis. And yet that's probably the best thing they could do in terms of just practical advice about how to control your world and stay focused.
Yeah, I talk to leaders often, CEOs, executives, especially around AI strategy, but that's something that keeps coming up. I think leaders understand the need to have a clear head, but it almost seems like an impossible ideal often. And when you started looking at get things done principles, that was 25 years ago. I believe it turns 25 years old in 2026,
Yeah.
and you're looking at that started back before the internet, before social media, before smartphones, before AI, and you've seen that transition over the years and how we get blasted with so much information, more busyness, more just overcomplication than ever before. Have the principles really worked without really needing a lot of change, or have you had to change the way that you present them as technology just made our lives so much more complicated and busy?
No, all technology has done is speed it up and add volume and speed of
Yeah.
change, to
And
your point.
noise.
Well, well, there was always noise, there was always signal versus noise, in your world. Uh, and, nothing really remarkable has changed. Well, AI is probably, I'd put in the same category as word processing and spreadsheets. Those were
Uh-huh.
game changers. They all changed the world. They all changed the knowledge worker world. Come on, word processing reduced secretarial hours like in spades.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets
Yeah.
reduced bookkeeping and accounting hours in spades. Well, come on, the car reduced horse business in spades.
Yeah.
You know, so every technological change, has produced disruption in some sectors of the world, and no exception now. Uh, and but it didn't change the principle. The principle had been true for hundreds of years and will be for many more hundreds of years. You still need to capture what's got your attention, decide what it means, what you're going to do about it, if anything. Have
Uh-huh.
some sort of a systematic way to keep track of all that stuff if you can't finish it in the moment, and
Uh-huh.
have some sort of review and reflection process that you can take a look at the whole inventory and keep it current. So some part of you can feel okay about what you're doing and what you're not doing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
It's so.
that's relative to the working world. That's pretty new. Knowledge
Yeah.
work, as Peter Drucker, defined it, was kind of a new thing. Instead of just make it and move it stuff, where you just show up and then things need to be made and moved, then it was just an efficiency factor. So I think that's what
Yeah.
Taylor did studied. It's like how much more efficient can we make the process? But they were really about efficiency of the work process, not what defining what the work is. But knowledge
Yeah.
work means you got to define what the work is. So, you know, when you read an email, it doesn't tell you exactly what to do with that or what it means.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it might, but for the most part, you have to go, wait a minute, who's this from? Why'd they send it to me? What do I need to do about this?
Yeah.
And whatever.
Why should I care?
You actually have to think. And that's why knowledge work was kind of labeled knowledge work. You actually have to know stuff and you have to use your brain to then make decisions about what stuff means to you when it shows up. So
Yeah.
that that that's pretty much a new world over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
See, people used to in the old early industrial day, people used to actually go to work. They never did that before. They worked where they lived. They farmed or they just had their own little craft or they did whatever they did, and they didn't have to unhook from a personal. They didn't have to have a distinction between their personal and professional life. But once people start to go to work, they had to kind of leave home and leave what was at home and
Uh-huh.
then go to work and then leave. And then when they came home, they had to leave what was at work. And then as opposed to whatever, but that started to make life a lot more complicated, but the complication and the volume didn't change the principles. Still have to do those. But what's now is the big challenge now is you got to get much better at this because there's so much volume. It's coming at you
Yeah.
so fast from so many different channels. It's what I refer to as channel creep. How many things do you actually have to check, Joel, to make sure you're
A lot.
seeing everything that might be relevant, the stuff you need to pay attention to? Slack and Google Meets
Yeah.
and Outlook and Asana and your
Uh-huh.
oh God knows how many channels you let come into your life. And so
Yeah.
knowing how to navigate those channels, whether you should even be in those channels or not, whether those channels have appropriate protocols as opposed to just a collection of trash and
Yeah.
meaningful stuff that you would have to then decipher. That's what's different, really. It's just more of a need to get better at how you collect and how you capture and and clarify and organize, what's meaningful
Yeah.
to you.
I love technology. I love everything that it allows. I'm able to work from home because of that. I don't know if that's going back in time to when people worked from where they lived, and they always had a plow, and it was almost like work and life, home life were together. But even with all the technology, I have never been able to move away from a pen and paper and a little notebook where I can put my to do list every morning. It there's something about the overcomplication of that. And I think about AI. You've One of the things that you've said is AI is really good at holding ideas. I A lot of people tout AI as it's going to bring this utopia. It's going to heal all sickness. And a lot of other people are saying it's going to end the world. It's going to when I look at what AI is doing right now, I really think most people are, and you've probably seen this with different tools as they come out. Most people that I see using AI are just trying not to miss out. They haven't taken a step back to see what are the best processes where I can use this. What are the best ways that I can use this? It's just using it for the sake of using it. And at that point, it's just another tool that adds noise and adds busyness and adds overcomplication to things that probably need two steps, and they now have a 25-step workflow. How you've talked about AI on decision support versus decision making. What led you to that differentiation specifically? Decision support versus decision making.
Well, just experimenting with a little AI myself. I mean, I'm not an expert in that field for sure, but I've been using Chat GPT, I don't
Yeah.
know, many months now. And I love it. It's great. I use it at least 3 or 4 times a day uh, to check, gee, where's the local place to buy the best old cheese here in Amsterdam? It'll tell me. Give me a lot of
Yeah.
good data. So
Yeah.
when I say decision support, that's how I use it. It's like, hey, I was going to talk to Joel. So who's Joel? So did a Chat GPT on it, and people could do that on David Allen. They'd be amazed how much stuff is out there,
Yeah.
you know, and eh, depending upon how important it is that you get support for the decisions you're going to make, AI is fabulous. It's wonderful. It exponentially, increased the ability to be able to have lots of good and potentially valuable perspectives on pretty much anything you want. And I say,
Potentially is such a key word there.
yeah, potentially, because you don't know if you can trust it. Trusting it to be able to make the decision about what to buy for mom's birthday might be the inappropriate thing to do. You're probably I would use that if I had my mom's dead, but if she was alive and I had a Mother's Day, which was just last Sunday or whatever, then I could say, what are some options? My mom is this age. These are the things she likes to do. What are some
Mhm.
options of gifts she could get? And it would provide me, lots of cool stuff that I might not have thought of before. Now,
Mhm.
all of that stuff, it's the same kind of decision support that like a tech group, if you're getting together monthly with a bunch of peer level senior people, CEOs or whatever, and everybody gets to share their issues and their some advice and whatever, you know, th- that's pretty much that's what AI can do right now
Yeah.
is give you a lot of that kind of um, potentially new and potentially interesting and potentially so far unthought of perspectives, about anything. So, boy, you can't beat that with a stick. It's great
Yeah.
stuff. But again, decision making, yeah. Well, see, if it's already in play, we probably don't even call it AI. Kevin Kelly said, he said AI is only something that's not implemented yet, but it's already going on. I mean, we did a road trip. I bought a Tesla last year, and we did a road trip to Spain, and you know, I programmed in. It's like, okay, if I'm going to be delayed past a certain time period, give me a new route.
Mhm.
So we didn't know it, but that was when the farmer strikes were going on in France and in Spain and
Oh.
and whatever. And they were closing a lot of the highways. They were just dumping, shit
Yeah.
on the roads and lighting it, you know. And so we were driving, and then my wife was saying, "Wait a minute, we're going down some strange road. We're going into the back roads of France." And I go, "Yeah, well, that's what she said to do." So we were, and so we wound up bypassing a whole lot of that stopped traffic on those highways. And that's AI doing just already in work,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a lot of things. So nothing wrong with any of that. And golly, our dishwasher and our dryer and our washer
Yeah.
are all electronic now anyway.
Yeah.
So, what the heck? So it's like kind of getting used to that world where a lot of that stuff is being automated. And, the direction is basically most administrative tasks are going to be AI,
Mhm.
at some point. And then people are going to have to find different routes or take their job to a different level where they're looking at things from a different perspective, as opposed to just cranking out a letter, or
Yeah.
transcribing some sort of a voice recording. That's all now available. You can do all
Mhm.
that. So, yay! So all that's good stuff. I don't know what the future would hold. I have no idea
Yeah.
yet what may be in store. But you know, it could very well be that it goes, gee, I get a notice every Friday afternoon and say, David, about 2 o'clock on Friday, you always like to go have a beer. Would you like me to order one or open the fridge and open it for you? You know,
Yeah.
and but I still have to say yes or no.
Yeah.
You know,
The
and,
decision making is still there.
yeah, I still have to do that. Well, it's like the difference between you and me meeting personally right now and you and me meeting
Yeah.
virtually right now. You know,
Mhm.
uh, virtual meeting is fine and is fabulous. It's wonderful. We can do that globally, around the world right
Mhm.
now, and that's terrific. But there's still a big difference between me sitting one on one, face to face with you, where I can
Yeah.
read body language. I can read a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of things
There's
can't
so
you
much
can't
more.
read through the virtual medium yet. So
Mhm.
in that way, I think you know there's no replacement for some things out there in terms of allowing you to access your intuitive strategic decision making.
Yeah. That's one of the areas where I think there is a danger with AI, and I see a lot of people s take AI as a replacement for having to critically think. I am gonna pass off the decision support. I am gonna a lawyer. I'm just gonna have it get all the case studies, and all of a sudden, some of them are hallucinated. Or I am gonna, ask it to write a full post for me. Or I'm a journalist, and I'm gonna ask it to write a news story for me. And what happens there is the main muscle, the critical thinking muscle, that just like any muscle needs to be developed. And if you go 1, 2, 3 years where AI is doing that thinking for you, first it's going to sound like everything else, and second, you're not getting better at that decision making framework, which I think it's something that I see as a loss. And one of the things that you said one time is, if you don't know what you want, any tool will do. And I really think that applies to AI well. A lot of people try to use AI for the sake of using AI, just to not miss out, and it can easily add more noise. So, in your personal practice, have you taken? I know you're not an AI expert, but as you use it, have you taken the time to step back and say, okay, these are areas that I'm just not going to let AI touch, or has it more just been organic as you see where it's helpful?
For me, it's just been organic. It's
Okay.
just something I use ad hoc, if you will. It's not like some strategic plan that I have to use it for X, Y, and Z. But I know probably a lot of people do and are trying to now figure that out. I'm not an expert in that area, nor do I have a lot of experience in that area. And maybe I just turned 80. Some of my life is not quite as busy or complex as it used to be. Uh, so I know people that are saying, God, that makes my weekly review of getting things done easier to do because I can now program it to then send me these kinds of things or let me know what's important that showed up in my email, etc.
Hmm.
I haven't bothered doing any of that. And I think, a very good friend of mine who's been deep into this since it started said, look, David, we're really going to get rid of administrative knowledge work. That's going to be taken over by the things that are automatically handled
Hmm.
and organized and automatically fed back to you as you might need or want it for other things. But then what that's going to do is allow you to graduate to much more creative, inventive things and innovative things to be thinking about.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're not going to dumb down your brain. You're going to let it graduate, I think. So, there are probably a bazillion exceptions to that, but I think that's the trend, and that's probably the direction that it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I actually do get that. I have an email that comes to me every morning, and it has a summary of my top emails that I need to pay attention to, and some of the biggest news and areas that I like to pay attention to, and I just go over that every morning. I'm not sure if that adds noise or I think it helps me. Sometimes I feel like it adds unnecessary noise. Um, in when you started the Get Things Done framework, it mostly on paper. You talked about how it moved to Palm Pilots eventually. It's integrated, I believe, with Microsoft 365. As you look through your day now in 2026, I'm really curious to see what's still pen and paper, what's technology, what if anything is AI in your daily routine.
Pen and paper is still there for capture because as I'm talking to you, something may show up. So this is
Oh,
right on my desk. Right?
yeah.
Already two notes. Oh, one I handle already. And to some degree, this oftentimes is stuff that I'll need to deal with sometime today. And so I just take
Hmm.
a note about it, and I'll deal with it and then throw this piece of paper away at the end of the day. Or if I haven't finished it, I tear it off and throw it in my in tray, which I will finish
Mm.
within, I will process within 24 hours. And as you probably know, I've had this tool for 40 years. No matter where I am or what I think about, that's there, pen and paper,
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm walking around. And, the more material you get, the more good ideas occur, not where that idea is going to be implemented.
Hmm.
You can have an idea about, you know, in the store about something you need to bring up at the marketing meeting. You be in the marketing
Yeah.
meeting, remember you need bread. So if you want to be as efficient as I like to be, only have that thought once. But then you better have a tool that is ubiquitously available to capture it.
Mhm.
And to pull out a phone and turn it on and make sure the battery's okay, and then to figure out where to then click and then to park that in the phone is a huge
Yeah,
waste of time.
yeah,
And for most people, their phones are black holes. They throw stuff in there and they don't process it. They don't deal with it. It's like, where the hell is that? Oh, I think I came up with some idea. It's like, yeah, yeah, right. That's where a couple
yeah. I
of
mean,
friends of mine, a couple of guys who are old time GTDers here in Amsterdam, actually developed Brain Toss, which is a great little piece of software. Because at
oh,
night, when I'm sitting here, in my reflection time at night with a good glass of wine or whatever, and my iPad open because I'm doing some other stuff on it, I get an idea. If I click Brain Toss, it's either camera, voice, or text. I throw it in
uh-huh.
there, but it goes into my in basket. My email doesn't go into the phone,
Oh,
so
huh.
I don't lose it. I don't lose it in the digital black hole.
Yeah.
It goes into what I process regularly, which is my email. And so I don't lose it that way. So, it's possible to use your digital devices for capturing, but uh, for most people, not the best. So paper,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I don't use that. That's not my organization system. It's my capture
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right.
Is there something to that where ideas about work come outside of work? Is it just the free
No,
space where
yeah,
you don't
no,
have
that,
all
that,
these?
that, that, that's how your brain works. Your brain
Huh.
doesn't actually have one. If your mind had a mind, it would only remind you of any of this stuff when you could do something about it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. And that's the problem is most people are trying to use their head as their office. So they
Mm,
don't trust their system totally because not everything is in the system. and they don't trust their head because not everything's in their head. So they
Yeah.
don't trust either one. So they tend to then be driven by whatever's latest and loudest as opposed to good strategic, intuitive decision making.
Yeah. Do you think there is room in AI helping with that differentiation of what's you just pay attention to what I mean, you see it with people all the time, in the nonprofit that I'm part of. If you get a donor who's screaming the loudest, everybody just wants to flock to fix that problem where that may be the 1% and not be the root cause, it's just the loudest. How I've seen people try to use AI to just simplify it and not just to listen to the loudest, but look at what data's telling you. But I don't know if you've looked into that at all.
Not really, but just my intellectually, as I think about it, I go, yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust it. You still need to trust your intuition about how critical it is that you smooth the waters with that client or not, given all the
Hmm.
other stuff going on. But given all the other stuff going on, trying to program all that stuff in would take you a lot more time than the value would try to save you.
Hmm.
So all the trying to input everything that might be relevant to making that decision is a lot of work, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and potentially a lot more work because that the world may change by the time you've got half of it input, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's moving
No,
so fast
it's
out there that very difficult. It's garbage in, garbage out, or half garbage in, or half input in is garbage
yeah.
because you don't really trust it.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. My main capture means is a double tap on the back of my phone, and it captures dictation, and it does the same thing. It sends it to my email as an actionable item that I can look at because I when I'm outside, when I'm walking around outside my house, away from away from my kids, it the free brain space when I don't have a screen that's showing me a ding every time there's a new email or a new Teams chat. It I I really struggle to think in that environment. So removing myself from being in front of a screen is usually when best ideas come.
Why do you take your phone with you?
I normally listen. I always listen to books while I'm
Oh,
while I'm
yeah.
walking, but then it becomes it. Yeah, it. I wish I had the self control to not look at it when a text comes in or when the email comes in, and um, yeah, it's tough because I want to be away from the noise to be able to focus, but I also want to be aware of what's going on, and if there's something, you know, office catching on fire, even though that never happens, you still want to be available in case that happens, and I think that's the tension that we feel.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to ever get rid of that. I take my phone with me sometimes because I think there's a call that's coming that I might want to make sure I don't miss.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, I don't think a hard and fast rule about any of this is going to make much sense.
hmm yeah. One of the questions I wanted to ask, and we're gonna finish at 8, to respect your time. I did wanna talk about something that I I know you've mentioned before, and it's in your book, falling off the wagon. A lot of people start to get things done. They start getting into a routine. They start getting rid of the noise, simplifying things, and they just fall off the wagon. What is what is the top reason that you've seen that happen? And if anybody here is listening, they're starting to pick up the book, they're looking into the principles. What is one thing that they need to try to at least be careful with?
Be aware of your addiction to ambient anxiety.
Huh,
So if you're willing to be waked up at 3 o'clock in the morning about something, you might take a seminar or read a book, and for a weekend or so, you might kind of get your head kind of clear. But
yeah,
your comfort zone is a lot more comfortable than being out of your comfort zone, which is having absolutely nothing on your mind. So once you get used to having nothing on your mind, and you can't have nothing on your mind if you're conscious. But what I mean by nothing on your mind is the only thing on your mind is what you want on your mind. right? Not something just
Mhm.
popping in because you haven't handled it or engaged with it
Yeah.
appropriately yet. So if you want to getting used to that, see, most people never tasted what that's like to not have
Mhm.
that. Once you get used to that, that'll be your comfort zone, and then you have to do whatever you have to do to get back to a clear head like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't have to work at it. I've done it for years, and so eh, I still slip every time you every time you make a commitment to anything new. You're going to have to undo something. It's
Yeah.
going to have to
That's true.
disturb something that was your status quo in order to be able to engage appropriately, whatever the new thing is, whether that's a vision, a new goal, a new hobby, new cool
Mhm.
thing, new baby. God knows, what kind of stuff shows up out there. And so uh, all those things would throw you off in a way. You just don't want to stay off very long. So I'm
Mhm.
off 3 times a day, maybe. I just don't stay
Yeah.
off. I go, wait a minute, I'm off. Come on, David, you got stuff going on in your head. You teach this stuff, write it down, figure out next step, put it in your system, whatever you need to
Yeah.
do to get clear about it. So
Yeah.
it's shifting your comfort zone to clarity as opposed to anxiety. Most people
Mhm.
don't realize it. It's kind of the last thing a fish notices in water. The last thing a lot of people notice is how much anxiety they live in. So you get rid of it.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, that feels different. It's kind of like the better you feel and the more excited you feel once you implement GTD means that the sooner you're going to fall off because it's new. It's a new feeling. It's a new thing.
Yeah.
I
The
just
habit
watched that.
hasn't been formed.
I've watched that. I'd have burned out a long time ago, Joel, if I expected everybody to implement and stick with this stuff once they read it.
Mhm.
Kind of silly because it's so simple and it's not. Again, it's easy to implement this stuff, although it's not free. Yeah, 'cause,
Yeah.
it's like having good health is not free. You have to do the stuff you need
Mhm.
to do to try to maintain it or get there.
Yeah.
So
You're probably gonna have to say no to a lot of stuff. You're gonna have to.
yeah, well, you don't have to say no. You just need to refocus on whatever you want to focus on, as opposed to that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's a way of saying no. Yeah, for sure. Well, see, you're saying no right now to how many things because you're talking to me.
Yeah.
Me too,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
How much stuff? But
Yeah.
I need to know what I'm not doing before I can feel comfortable about not doing it.
Mhm. And I think that's a temptation that I see now. People are in a meeting and they're answering email and they're maybe getting a chat on their phone, and all of a sudden they're not really present in any of the four things that they're doing at the same time. Being connected a lot of times can just add just so much complexity. Then if you're able to focus on just one thing, it's funny that you brought up thinking of nothing. My wife tells me all the time, just when I have too many thoughts in my head, she'll tell me, just think of a blank wall. And just think of staring at a blank wall. I can't do that. I cannot get to the point where I just have nothing in my head. She can get there really easily. So it's an interesting uh, chat there. But I do want to get to two questions that we got from listeners. Um, Neil McDonald said, "Fantastic to join this conversation. Does David see journalism as having a place in GTD, especially in the age where AI can transcribe and journal on a person's behalf, potentially at risk of the action or thought directly going around the user?"
That's a good question. I've journaled off and on for decades. Sometimes I feel like doing it. It's a kind of a more subtle, sophisticated version of capturing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Kind of just and it's actually a very creative process. That's why I use a fountain pen with real ink in a nice little
Oh.
journaling journal because it allows me the kinesthetic aspect to it, which somehow triggers thoughts that I wouldn't have otherwise. And there's a lot of research about that now. I'm not an expert in that area, but a lot of people have studied it. That just by writing things down and physically writing uh,
Yeah.
opens parts of your brain that wouldn't open otherwise. So you get ideas you wouldn't have otherwise if you don't write it down.
Hmm.
Not only that, if you write it down, there's a part of your brain that says, now I can leave it as opposed to keep
Yeah.
regurgitating around it.
Mhm.
So I hardly ever read back on my journal at all. I just do it as a way
And
to
just the
think.
action of putting it there in the first place just has a big
Yeah.
effect.
And if nothing else, it's another version of sort of the Stoic idea or the Zen idea of just acceptance of reality.
Yeah.
You know? Here's what I'm feeling right now. Here's what I'm noticing right now. Sometimes I journal and I go, "There's a wall. There's a painting. There's a tree outside." Well, and all I do is I start to just capture
Yeah.
the current reality in its own mundaneness, and even then, cool stuff tends to show up.
That's
And
amazing. That's a great reminder.
thinking of nothing, a blank wall, I wouldn't bother doing that. What I do is I just relax and say, I don't have to think about anything, and then let my mind go wherever it wants to go. That's
Mhm.
when I've had some of my coolest ideas, when I just put no pressure on my mind to have to think about anything. Just let it think however it wants to think.
Yeah.
Free reign. Let the puppy
That's
play.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder. The last question comes from Rob. He wrote, "Thanks for everything you've done, David. If I could ask, do you still separate home and work? Or does your system, project list, for example, consist of everything at once? I'm a secondary school teacher in the UK."
So it's all everything at once. I haven't separated them in 40 years. It's just life and work. It's easier now, and obviously the pandemic moved a lot of people into more. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
now I have to track everything. Kind of in the same way. Yeah, but I've been doing that for years. Don't make any distinction about that. I just decide what's next. Out of all that, I have the freedom to do that for the most part, other than committed meetings like this. That I say I have to be there at that
Yeah.
time about that thing. But otherwise, it's I plan as little as I can get by with. I like to follow my spontaneous, intuitive, strategic hunches about what to do next.
Yeah.
People often meet me and they say, "God, damn, you're nothing like I thought you were going to be." They read my book. They thought I was going to be corporate, button down, tight ass, anal retentive, whatever. And I'm not anything like that at all, personally. That's how I came up with a lot of the getting things done, so that I could keep that free space
Yeah.
and utilize it, maximally.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's been times in your life when you've seen it creep into less of that thinking space and how to adjust and get more and less. And
Oh yeah, oh, yeah.
no, that's awesome. No, this is great. We're getting a lot of chats. A lot of people have been following the get things done principles. You've impacted leaders for decades, and I bet you hear all the time from people who you've never met, you never heard of, but have been using your principles for a long time.
I know. I've been blessed by the powers that be that I came up with some sort of a career that gave me the opportunity to be able to have the most incredible network of coolest people. Believe it or not, it's the the people who need GTD the least that are most attracted to it.
Yeah,
They're already the ones that know the value of organizing. They know
that's
the
a good
value
point.
of aspirational thinking, and they know the value of systems. And uh, they've run out of room. And
Yeah.
so, I meet a whole lot of the brightest people you'd ever meet on the planet that are just so hungry for this because it's the next step they need to take.
Oh, that's awesome. Last question. If you had two books that you could recommend to everybody listening and then everybody who's going to get the post later, obviously, Get Things Done by David Allen. What are other two books that you would recommend?
One of the latest,
Huh. Moral Ambition.
Rupert Bergman. Yeah. And his book before that, too, is Humankind. The Humankind book is beautiful because it's a lot of data that he's collected. He's been an incredible researcher as well as a journalist and writer about how good people really are, as opposed to the way press tends to make everybody out as all
Yeah.
the great demons and all the big negative stuff about what people are doing. Where in truth, most people are really good people that do really good stuff when push comes to shove. And that's a great book about that. As he told me, he said, David, humankind was like a warm bath. Uh, Moral ambition is like a cold shower. He said, this is kind of, this is about how much intellect and energy is being wasted by people doing jobs that are not contributing to the planet.
Mm,
And this is not like, workers and plumbers and electricians and whatever. These are, you know, MBA graduates going into consulting and finance and business, and all that stuff.
mm,
So, and most of them, quite frankly, given all the research, are not engaged with their work. They say, yeah, I'm making money, but who cares? I'm not
yeah.
doing anything really worthwhile other than moving stuff around, you know,
Uh-huh.
in the financial world. So his whole thing
Moral
is,
ambition.
is yeah, is he's set up now clubs around the world attracting
Huh.
people like that. And he's even got a program where if you sign up and get picked, very hard to get picked, you get picked, they will give you 6 months of your current salary to leave your job
Oh, wow.
and then work with the team to address a global
Huh.
issue. And so the first group that got selected have been working about dealing with the greatest cause of death on the planet. You know what that is? Smoking.
Huh.
More people are dying of smoking than any other disease, anything else on the planet. But how much are people dealing with the tobacco companies and with cigarette
Huh.
advertising and all of that stuff? They're just promoting something that's the biggest,
Yeah.
deadliest thing going on the planet. So that's the kind of thing they're tackling.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
Nobody's really
Yeah.
tackled it yet. And they've already made some significant progress in that
That's
world.
awesome.
Anyway, so and
That's so interesting.
Rooker's a great guy. He's so sweet and totally bright. And he got into this because his last book that he started was about uh, abolishing slavery.
Mm,
The country that was the first country in the world to legally abolish slavery, the UK.
really?
Yeah,
Huh.
and it wasn't like some big protest or rah rah rah. This was a group of 12 very sophisticated, successful business people and academics that got together and said, "How do we deal with this issue?" And they actually came up with the stuff that they wound up, whatever. Anyway, it was a great story, and he got so inspired by that. He said, "Well, why can't we do that now? Why is that not happening now?" And so that he said, "Well, I used to." Now he loves GTD. He said because he used to just be a writer, so he didn't have anything to do but write. You know, His life wasn't that complex, other than just the research he was doing. But now
Yeah.
he said, now I'm an entrepreneur. I'm
Oh,
setting up
yeah. Yeah.
this whole global academic thing, this whole thing. And it's like, oh my God, it's like my day is like crazy now. So anyway, he's a great guy. So and
Moral ambitions. That I'm adding that to my
yeah,
list for sure.
good.
Moral ambitions. Get things done. By David Allen. Please check it out. You can find a lot more of David Allen's work in gettingthingsdone.com. And then you're on Substack as well, David. davidallen.substack.com.
Yay.
So, hey, very excited about this conversation. I have a lot to digest here. I just really appreciate your time. I know you could have done so many other things during these last 49 minutes, and just really appreciate the time you gave us.
Thanks, Joel. This was fun. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who's here, and have an awesome day.